So today we're going to be answering the question that was submitted to us, which is, can I use my TRS 3 or PERS 3 to pay off my mortgage? Is that a good use of funds? What are your thoughts? So the short answer to this question is yes, you can, but is it a good idea? More than likely, it's not going to be in your best interest to do that. Now, here's why. Remember that when we take money off of our Plan 3 accounts, we still haven't paid taxes on it yet. So if we want to pull money out of this account, we actually have to pull off more than what we think we need just to cover the tax bill, right? So if I wanted to pay off my home that has $100,000 left, I don't have to pull out 100,000 off my TRS 3. I'd have to pull, 130, 140, whatever it is that you would need to make the taxes work out to actually net it. So you actually have to take much more than you realize to begin with. Not only that, all the money that you take out now becomes taxable. You're going to have to pay taxes of 22, 24, some odd percent of that money. So is it worth paying off a mortgage that's charging 3%, 7% interest just to turn around and pay 20 something percent to the IRS in form of taxes? In most cases, that's not going to make a lot of sense, but I have to talk about this because it is something I have seen done time and time again. So actually, we had a work with a client a few years back that regardless of what we told them, they were adamant that this is what they wanted to do with their money, that they didn't need for anything else. So they went ahead and did it, and they found out the hard way in that when they did it all, mortgage was paid off, worked out great for them. Then they got their tax bill. They had to dip into some of their savings to cover the bill. And then on top of that, they noticed that they got to take home less of Social Security checks. Why? Because the more income I make, the more my Social Security is subject to taxes, therefore I take home less. And the kicker was a couple years after that happened, they ended up having to pay extra for their Medicare premiums. Why is that? Because Medicare also looks at your income, but they have a 2-year delay. So something that you do today could impact you 2 years down the road. Most times we're going to forget about this kind of thing and just be like, hey, what happened? Why am I paying $300 a month for Medicare when I was paying $170? Right. So these are things that are kind of baked into the retirement plans. So anytime we make transactions, they always have tax impacts on us, and they can often impact our other benefits. So that's why for most people, paying off your home, as good as it sounds, with your pre-tax accounts like TRS 3 or PERS 3, typically isn't going to work out in your best interest. Now, if that isn't already enough information to deter you from doing this, you got to think about it from this perspective. Once the money goes in to your house, right, you paid it off, all that money is essentially locked up in equity. And the only way to access it is to pay for it, right? You have to do a reverse mortgage, you have to go get a home equity line of credit, a cash out refinance, or you got to sell the home. All those things take time, they all come with fees, and there's a lot of paperwork involved. You're going to have a hard time getting access or keeping liquidity down the road if you put a good chunk of your retirement into your house. And the other thing to consider, and perhaps the biggest one, is that you've pretty much shooting yourself in the foot in terms of future growth. So yes, your home will appreciate in value over time, but oftentimes it's not going to keep up with what the stock market is going to be doing over the long run. So when you cash it out to pay this off, you're going to give up all the future growth your portfolio could have been generating for you over time. And remember that just because you're retired doesn't mean your portfolio stops growing. You might stop contributing to it, which means it might not grow as quickly, but it's still invested. You still are owning the shares. And as those shares appreciate in value, so does your portfolio. And you're going to be missing out on that for the next 20, 30, 40 years, which should probably add up to a couple $100,000, if not more, that you're just giving up just to save, a few $1,000s in interest. So like I said, most times this isn't going to make sense, but this is a question that I get all the time. I've seen a client do it, and they have officially run out of money about 3 or 4 years, into their retirement just because they wouldn't take the advice and they wanted to do what they wanted to do. They act emotionally, and now 4 years in retirement, they have no money left other than what's in their savings, which isn't a whole lot at this point. So one key way to avoid running out of retirement is to not make this mistake. I hope that was a helpful tip for everybody. Any questions, feel free to post them in the comments below. See you guys all next week. Remember that your future depends on what you do today.